So, today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. It's a document called the 143 System, and it puts forward this incredibly detailed blueprint for taking the idea of Pan-Africanism and turning it from a dream into, well, what the source calls a tangible scientific reality. Let's get into it and see what it's all about.
And right away, it hits you with this huge question. For decades, right, African unity has been this powerful, often emotional ideal. But this document asks something really provocative. What if we stopped treating it like a feeling and started treating it like a massive engineering project?
So here's our game plan. We'll start with what it means by a new kind of Pan-Africanism. Then we'll check out the ultimate vision, this thing called a super federal Africa. After that, we'll dig into the nuts and bolts, the practical blueprint for sovereignty. And we'll wrap up with the call to action for what's called the Army of 143. Okay, so first up, reimagining what Pan-Africanism even is. The whole argument here is that to actually move forward, the approach has to change, from just an emotional connection to a real strategic methodology. This slide really lays it all out on the table. The way the source sees it, Pan-Africanism has often been treated as this hopeful dream, nostalgic, a little passive, maybe built on reciting slogans. The proposal is to flip that completely to a scientific blueprint, something you can touch, something actionable and strategic, that's all about actually building a future. And this quote from the text just nails it. This isn't about reciting slogans, it's about constructing a future brick by scientific brick. It's a call to shift gears from pure idealism to methodical, concrete work. To make this idea really click, the source uses a great metaphor, a continental operating system. The idea isn't to erase all the diverse cultures and nations. It's about creating a powerful, stable framework where all those individual parts can run efficiently and thrive, all while being part of a unified whole. So if that's the new approach, what's the end game? Well, that brings us to the really big vision at the heart of this whole plan, the super federal Africa. And here it is. This is the destination that the blueprint lays out. A continent that's totally unified, economically self-sufficient, and, this is the big one, completely sovereign. The whole goal is an Africa that can decide its own future, totally free from outside control or interference. Okay, that sounds amazing, but how would it actually work politically? Well, the core idea is something called the Ubumwe Afrika Covenant. Imagine a central assembly with 143 seats, specifically designed to represent not just today's countries, but every major ethnic nation and diaspora community. And that number, 143, is super important here. It's not just a random figure. It's presented as a carefully calculated number meant to guarantee that the entire African family, both on the continent and scattered across the world, has a real seat at the table. And when you see a visual like this, you really start to get the sheer scale of this project. The goal here isn't just a little reform. It's to fundamentally redraw the map, to move past the borders inherited from the colonial era, and create a truly unified political and economic reality. Okay, so a grand vision is one thing, but how in the world do you get there? This next part is all about the practical steps, the nuts and bolts, in the blueprint for actually achieving what it calls total sovereignty. First things first, the blueprint says we need to think about sovereignty in a whole new way. It's not just about having your own flag. It's a holistic thing, having full, total command over everything, your economy, your culture, your natural resources, your entire way of life. And here are the key pillars of that plan. The blueprint lays out several major initiatives. There's an economic strategy called the Economic Sword, an environmental plan called the Green Nations Initiative, and a policy for managing resources called the Resource Rule. But it goes deeper, even including projects for cultural renewal, which the source calls spiritual cleansing and centers of light. And that gets to something really critical about this plan. This isn't just about politics and money. The source describes the entire project as a spiritual and psychological reclamation, a process designed for healing and shedding the internalized weight of past oppressions. So all of that leads us to the final piece of the blueprint, the call to action. It's framed as a summons for people to become active builders of this vision, to be part of what it calls the Army of 143. Now, obviously, using a word like army is a pretty strong choice, but the source is very clear about what it means. This quote clarifies the intent perfectly. This is not a call for violence, but a summons to duty. The term army is really a metaphor for a mobilized, dedicated, and unified group of people. So who exactly makes up this army? According to the text, it's this incredibly diverse force. We're talking about Africans on the continent and in the diaspora, scholars, artists, farmers, tech entrepreneurs, basically anyone and everyone united by this specific vision of a sovereign Africa. And their mission is laid out in 4 pretty clear steps here. The call is for people to, first, educate their communities about the 143 system, second, to really engage with its economic and environmental ideas, third, to embrace that spiritual reconnection it talks about, and finally, to become an active architect of this new future.
And this is where it all leads. This is the end goal, a vision for the year 2050. An Africa that, according to this blueprint, isn't just sovereign and prosperous, but one that actually stands as a beacon of hope for the entire world. So, we'll leave you with the question that this whole blueprint really forces you to think about. Whether you see it as a practical roadmap or a wild utopian dream, it makes you ask, what does it really take to build a new future from the ground up? What are the bricks you need, and who are the people that have to lay them?